Do good work is not a label, but a way of living. It is the constant and diligent effort to achieve a new level of excellence in one's own life. It is the hidden inner beauty behind the struggle to achieve excellence. It's not perfect, but imperfect. It is the effort, discipline, and focus that often goes unnoticed. The goal of Do Good Work is to highlight that drive. The guests I have on this show emulate this drive in their own special way. You'll be able to apply new ideas into your own life by learning from them. We will also have one-on-one episodes with me where we'll dive into my own experience with entrepreneurship and leadership. Every episode is designed to provide you with ideas that you can apply and grow in excellence in all areas of your life, business, and career.
Today on the show, we have Margy Felduhn. Margy is the owner of Interview Connections, the first and leading podcast booking agency. Their team of in-house booking agents are the podcast powerhouses behind many successful entrepreneurs and business owners, including Ali Brown, AWeber, USA Financial, and more. When she's not busy getting on podcasts or recording her own show, Rock the Podcast, Margy is active in animal rescue, organizing a yearly fundraiser called Art for Animals. In 2019, she was recognized in her efforts for Humane Heroes Award. She is owned by her 17-year-old cat and a 9-year-old toothless Yorkie Poo. Excellent. So, Margy, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Margy, one of the things that when I work with clients and when I work on creating marketing strategies, I usually map things out in little boxes because typically that's how I think in boxes, just like an imagery. But specifically, I have a certain box that says OPP. And that box is specifically for other people's platforms, especially for growing your business, for growing your audience, doing inbound lead generation, and leveraging that, not in a way that's just for selfish, it's giving value so that you can go ahead and teach others in audiences that you would typically not reach. Typically, I see like a lot of people talk more about outbound, direct outbound ads, Google, all that fun stuff, but we kind of fail to focus on that OPP box. I'd love to explain a little bit more about, have you explain a little bit more about the power in leveraging other people's platforms and audiences.
Yeah, I love that you said that. We actually internally do say OPP for other people's podcasts, but same thing. Yeah. So it's so incredibly powerful to get in front of new audiences all the time, not just to grow your brand and get leads and get clients, which you will if you're especially a service-based online entrepreneur, but to really give value and magnify the impact that you're having. And being a guest consistently, like at least 4 times per month, every month on other people's podcasts is a really, really powerful way to do that.
So I know that it sounds easier said than done, and I've spoken and even done like the whole rabbit hole myself, but like you create spreadsheets, you list podcast names, research, outbound. So can you walk us through maybe what does a tactical strategy look like? And because it's obviously it sounds easy, it's not as easy, but it's actually quite simple. So I'd like for you to walk us through, I guess, high level and then maybe dive into the weeds a little bit.
Yeah, it is simple. There is a lot of research and legwork involved in finding shows that are going to be a good fit for you. And a lot of people new to this strategy go into it with, I think, maybe a little too much ego, or they're used to traditional PR. So the focus is on numbers, like reach the most people possible in the audience. Whereas with this strategy, we find that our clients are most successful focusing on shows that are talking to their target audience and are smaller, more niche shows that more mid-range size. And those are the ones that convert and turn into actual clients for them. So it's getting clarity on what are your goals for being a guest. If you're doing it to be famous, is not the strategy. But if you're doing it to get clients for a service-based business, or to gain referral partners or affiliate partners, or to get more speaking opportunities, then it's a really, really good strategy. So once you know those goals and target audience, you just start researching and finding shows and then pitching those shows. And to do at least 4 shows per month, which is what we recommend every single month to build up momentum, you're going to want to be pitching 20 or more shows every single month.
So that's looking at the numbers. So I want to dive that into, because you said a lot of valuable things there. Looking in the numbers first, though, it sounds like having a 20% acceptance rate is, I guess a baseline that we're going to look at. So if you are going to be doing this strategy, looking at it, at outbounding at least 25 to 30 relationships and just introducing the opportunity to be on their podcast or show.
Yeah, I would actually you'd probably have a lower success rate. I would go 10% to be safe because it's cold outreach. We have relationships with a lot of podcasts, so we have a higher success percentage because the hosts know us. We have conversations with them. They've talked to us about the types of guests they want. So it's easier to pitch someone like that. But if you're new in the game and trying to pitch yourself and it's all cold, then I would expect a 10% and work backwards from that to get your 4 interviews per month.
And I think that's fair too. And as you're building up your network too, it's building relationship, and obviously that success rate increases because it's building relationship and trust. And that's pretty much the name of the game here. There's something also that you mentioned that I do want to dive into. It's the mindset and the approach in the types of shows to be on and types of shows not to be on. I remember looking at a report more than a year ago, maybe like 6 to 9 months ago, but from L2 and Gartner, that the audience reach, depending on the number of followers, this was for Instagram, but it can correlate well for anyone with an audience, is typically there's more share rate and more trust rate for audiences less than maybe even 32,000 people. And typically it's the old debate of impressions versus conversions or actual vanity metrics.
Yeah, and they're both good. They both have their place. Like doing traditional media or getting on a really big podcast, even though you may not necessarily get clients, it's great positioning. You can, share the appearance on your website and it looks good, and that is valuable. But in terms of actual conversions, yes, I would definitely agree. And we see that with podcasts, that it's the smaller audiences that convert higher.
Let's talk more about the conversion piece, because you mentioned there's more than one outcome when it comes to being on podcasts. And I think that, when businesses, or if you're a digital marketing firm, if you're a service-based company, if you're whatever, it pretty much B2B online services, in some cases B2C, but I think heavily B2B focus, having a podcasting strategy, not only for yourself, but also for outbound and guesting, should have a multiple ways of delivering value, not only to the people that are hosting you, but also to the audience. So you mentioned there's possibilities for strategic partnerships, for affiliate partnerships, for new leads, or for joint ventures. So what are some of the ways that you're looking at in order to set those strategies up before you actually engage with the actual host?
Yeah. So a big thing for like affiliate partnerships is who is the host. So we look at who our client is, who their target audience is, and then connect them with shows that are hosted by an entrepreneur who is either an influencer in their space or has a complementary audience, or even would be a good client for them. So we have clients who are in the real estate space, the educational real estate space, and they have an incredible strategy. We book them on shows with hosts who would be good affiliate partners for their course. And every time we connect them with a host, they ask the host to be an affiliate partner. And they don't all say yes, it's not a fit for everyone, but enough do that they've seen a couple $100,000 in revenue just from their podcast appearances from this affiliate strategy with hosts.
And when you're doing like discovery with your clients, how do you suggest which avenue or which strategy is best for their particular businesses? Can you walk us through some of that thinking?
Yes, we do a lot of strategy with our clients, and it is an ongoing kind of on the court thing, because the strategy we start off with before you've even done an interview, when we get 5-10 interviews in and we have ongoing support from our leadership team, we do monthly strategy calls with our clients where we're listening to interviews. We're talking through like, okay, how did these shows go? How are these audiences working? So there has to be some amount of pivot on the court once you get going, because things will naturally evolve and gain momentum. But the way we do it is really just looking at, what is your goal? Are you trying to get clients? Are you trying to do this? And then we know what types of hosts to target. And then also, if the goal is, I want clients from the audience as well, which is true for so many of our clients, we're looking at not just who is the host, but is the target audience of the show your ideal client? And then where are you sending them at the end of the interview? What is your call to action that you're capturing these listeners and bringing them to the next step with you and your company?
And I like the fact that you even look at beyond the interview, not only just like what happens after with the call to action, and we'll dive into that, but also even the hosts might be a good fit for your business, or, for a potential strategy for both of you to benefit. And again, it goes back to trust. It goes back to value add. It goes back to increasing impact. And it can't just be like a me-centered focus. And that there is like a tactic or a strategy when it comes to having specific landing pages for that specific show, but then you can end up with maybe 100 different landing pages. Can you talk us through, I guess, some of that thinking and what you suggest and what you see your clients are succeeding with?
Yes, we do see that strategy a lot, of like a different landing page for every show. And while that can work and is great for tracking data, I think anyone who says it's a one size fits all when it comes to call to action is mistaken, because there are many different calls to action that can work. And it really depends on your business, who your target audience is, what you like doing. Our call to action has evolved a lot. And our call to action now, which you'll hear at the end, but we sent everyone to our free Facebook community. And that's a great place for them to go because it's super high value. We're doing free trainings all the time. We have full-time employees in there who are, reaching out to everyone and supporting them and helping them have breakthroughs. So we know it's such a valuable place to nurture people that that's an incredible call to action for us, better than if we sent people just to a landing page. Other people who host podcasts, sometimes sending listeners to your own podcast, if your show converts into business for you, that's a perfect call to action because they listen to podcasts and they're in that app. So it depends on what you have going in your business already, what is going to be kind of the path of least resistance.
That's very wise to have multiple CTAs depending on what is adaptable to your audience. And, this is probably one of my nerdier shows because I love podcasting, clearly, when it comes to all these things. And we'll get into some fun questions in a bit as well. But I do want to dive into, because I think it's important for audience members to hear this. You mentioned a lot about conversion and knowing your numbers. And for some, I think we can get jumbled with, analytics, with GTM, with the tracking codes. What are the dead simple ways that you've helped your clients with tracking conversion rates for podcasts?
So it really does depend on the client. Our clients who are also leveraging Facebook groups, they'll have questions in their Facebook group about where they found them. So they'll get answers from, which podcast it was. It can be tricky. And while I love data, and with stuff like our Facebook ads, it's like 100% data driven, I do tend to get a little loosey-goosey with my own tracking from podcast audiences, because I find that we have so much content and we have such a big community, and we have our own show and our Facebook group, that people will hear us on a podcast, but then they'll listen to our podcast or hang out in our Facebook group for a while. And then they'll, find us somewhere else, and then they'll close. So sometimes they don't even remember, or it'll be like they're already a client and they said, oh, I found out about you from a Facebook ad. But then when we're talking to them on the phone as a client, they're like, oh, actually, I first heard about you 3 years ago when I heard you on this show. So it can be kind of a winding road sometimes, but we have a lot of clients who are super data driven, and they have kind of different systems depending on where they're sending people to tell who's coming from which show.
And I love that answer for several reasons, because there is that split analytical side where you can do customer journeys on analytics and track every single stage to understand what's their journey, which is valuable in a sense. But there's also, I guess, the wisdom that I remember learning when I was helping Jason Hornan was that you're creating an ecosystem.
Yeah.
And this ecosystem, you're creating content and creating value, and it's going to work. And sometimes measuring that it's taking more time than actually focusing on 80-20 activities. So the ecosystem piece, I think, is monumental, especially now with a lot of the community trends of online, with podcasts, and actually nurturing your audience. But I have a fun question for you. What excites you most about podcasting today?
That's such a good question. The thing that excites me most about podcasting is storytelling. I mean, it's like as things advance and the landscape of podcasting changes, that fundamental piece of people sharing their stories is the most powerful piece and what means the most to me. And even before we went live today, like I shared with you, I listened to an episode of your show to prepare, and I was so moved. It was such an incredible interview. And hearing, your guests sharing about their journey with, mental health and depression and how that impacted their entrepreneurial journey, I related to that so deeply because I also have that in my background. And so many of the things he was saying, I was like, and that feeling of hearing someone, even though they're a stranger, and feeling that feeling of connection, of belonging, of like, it's like they're in my head. What they're saying is what I'm experiencing. I think that is so powerful. And that's my favorite thing about podcasts.
And that is the spark of human connections, even though we're kind of disconnected in that form, but it is also a connection form. And I have another question that might be a bit more abstract. So let's hold on for this one. When it comes to where we're at right now with the situation of a lot of social distancing, with a lot of disconnection, but we're also looking for a community, what are some of the ways that you see, the next level for podcast hosts or podcasts in general, communities? How can they create stronger communities and ties with, it's asynchronous clearly right now. We don't have like guests on this show right now, audience members, right? So it's asynchronous communication, but how do you see a trend, or how do you see the future of podcasting where we're able to have deeper connections with audiences? And what's the next level that you see that podcast hosts are doing and taking?
Yeah, there's a few things going on. I know there's some apps, one in particular called Podopolo, and it's really interesting. I was actually interviewed on the show, and the host is the founder of that app. And I'm very interested in what she's doing, because Podopolo, it's like a player app, but it also has gamification and an opportunity for listeners to interact with the host, to vote, to win prizes. And I thought that was really cool. And I think that is going to be the first of many apps like that and communities like that that make podcasts more interactive, because with podcasts and with social media too, hosts and celebrities have never been more approachable. I mean, we can like DM someone on Instagram and we might get a reply, and maybe it's their like manager, but it could be them, that's never been the case. If you're watching someone on TV, it was very one way. So I think more technology like that fosters community. And then also just Facebook groups and the types of groups we already have, and podcasts emphasizing using those more to be in communication with listeners.
No, I love that. So where is the Facebook group that we can find your content and your trainings?
Yeah. So our free Facebook group is called the Guest Expert Profit Lab. You can find it at interviewconnections.com/group. And it's a great place to network. It's all entrepreneurs, and it's where a lot of our best content is. My business partner and I are in there all the time doing free trainings. And it's kind of like an ongoing conversation about podcasting, about guesting, about business. So it's fun.
Oh, that's awesome. And then for our audience members who can reach out directly to you, what's the best place to do that, Margy?
The best place to do that is interviewconnections.com/call. If you want to hop on the phone with a member of my team and talk through your business, your goals, what a strategy with podcasting might look like for you, that's a great place to go.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on, and we'll put those links in the show notes as well. You have a wonderful
Thank you
day.
so much for having me.